And welcome to In the Chair. Last week we spoke about how the leader of the fast gun gang in Lavendale, Cheslin Nelson, was shot alongside his 11-year-old son in their home in Lavendale. Nelson was, of course, a known gang leader. His son, 11 years old, was not. He was an innocent. There were times when we spoke about some form of honor code amongst people involved in gangs and guns, and we're told by people who have known that terrain that those days are long gone. The gang game, it's not a game, but the gang game has changed. Rivals simply don't care anymore and will target anyone. And then we spoke to a man who we were referred to by the name of Reebock. Alan from Reitenwacht, has spent half of his life behind bars. He confesses, he's open to talk about how he was a henchman for a prominent gang leader here in the Western Cape. He smuggled drugs and guns, and he's been shot more times than he can recall. He also features in a recently released book called Gangster. It's authored by Carla van der Spey, which covers the lives of reformed gangsters and how turned his back on a gang lifestyle. He's also counselor, drug and life counselor for the organization Healing Waters. He is in the chair with us this morning. Alan, thanks so much for joining us. Alan Reebock. We were talking about names and we were talking about where we come from. Where's Reebock from? Huh?
Everyone says from the tacky.
Wearing an Adidas shirt here. Is there a thing called the reformed gangster? From what I understand, people I've spoken to, there's no such thing as a reformed gangster. There's only a gangster who's currently not involved in gang activity. How do you see yourself?
God's grace and mercy is sufficient for me. The labeling and stigmatizing after a person has been set free by man is what holds people back in life. I'm still a sinner. I stay a sinner. But I've learned the lessons from my life. I didn't take it as a punishment anymore. It was a learning lesson for me. I'll never be perfect, but today I'm going to try to be better than I was yesterday. Yesterday I only swore 20 times. Today I'm going to try to swear 19 times. That kind of aspect, you understand? To me, I must say, just that I could open my eyes this morning, that's God's grace and mercy. Through what I've come through, what God has carried me through to where I am today. Thank you, Lord. People say you're not reformed and all. I've got time to worry about that anymore.
Who was Alan and what was Alan doing when Alan realized, I am deep in crime, I am deep in organized crime, I am deep in this lifestyle which I may have chosen or may have chosen me and fallen in because of circumstance? Who was Alan? What was Alan doing at that deepest?
To put it short and sweet for you, if the devil heard I was around town, even he used to run. A heart of stone. You didn't care about anybody else. For instance, that you're talking about the father and son that was shot. I'm going to focus on that, not on that situation, because I don't know much detail about it. I know what I know, but because I can understand the behavior from what happened to my situation, my son, Dylan, he was next to me in the passenger seat. He couldn't even spell the word gangster. But when they opened fire on the car upon me, the bullet struck him. Yes, I got skin grazed and things, but it killed him. The mode that it took me into, the anger that was in me, it had me shooting people. I didn't care if you weren't a gangster.
Alan, what happened? What was your life that people would want to target you, but unintentionally or maybe intentional, targeted your son? What did you do to other people that made people want to open up on your car?
I connected myself with a prominent gang leader in the Western Cape, Bobby Mongrel. To me in those days, which I didn't see then, I can see now. I was looking to him as a father figure, but I was doing everything to stay closely attached to him. If I needed to drive him somewhere, or I used to pretend being his bodyguard. That's what we think. But that's all a figmentation of our imaginations, man. That's not really how it is. We're being used. So yes, all that drew much negativity to me. There was a time that if he would say so-and-so needed to be shot, well then we'd go and shoot so-and-so. Not a problem. All of that I drew is what got me, everything that happened to me was through my own decisions. It was the consequences of my decisions.
Being involved in gangs, guns, and gangsterism, is it business? Or is it people who don't care? I largely want to believe that people are inherently good, and sometimes business, sometimes greed, sometimes capitalism, sometimes consumerism makes people do bad things in order to attain whatever they want. Is gangsterism simple ill morals, or is it business?
It's business for some. And anybody can latch on. They're feeding some or other brokenness in them. They're feeding from that. But it's been run like a business today. If we go back in the days when I was still active, the main thing that we did was, like in Ottery, we were there to protect our people, our mommies that are coming home from work, our girlfriends, or our this, or in our little blocks where we used to live. It was more like that, and protect our area. But it's developed. And those years, in the beginning, it was, if you fought a gang fight, it was with pangas and dromdeksels.
I'm old enough to remember that time. I grew up in Retreat. I remember actually watching in the Kavda area people fighting on fields. It wasn't guns. It was, as you said, it was sticks, sometimes knives.
Yeah.
It was drum lids, and people left alive.
Yep.
People settled the score, and they
Lekker pak gekry.
and I'm not saying that is also good. Violence, avoid violence at all costs. But the at least the respect of a life was there, if we could say, at least.
Yeah, the brokenness is so deep, and as you say, the business, which has brought in all the different drugs now, totally mind-altering substances. The journey of the various drugs. Back in the day, it was buttons, dagga, en 'n kan Virginia, en 'n sokkerbol, jy sondag op die maandag is jy by die werk weer. You understand? But because of the changes like today, the cell phones and computers and laptops and tablets, the first time I saw a cell phone, I was in prison. I looked at it and thought, what is this thing? I mean, it's crazy. When I came out of prison, I had visited somebody, and they said, listen, I'm going to make something in the kitchen for us. Sit there and play a couple of games on the TV. I thought, games? And he said, just put it on. When he came back, he got me under the table, putting him by the plug.
My goodness.
I didn't know this stuff.
How many years were you in jail?
21 years in and out.
But isn't prison, in what South African prison at the moment is, it's the university of crime, going in and learning more than what you did outside, entrenched with the law and the rituals and even the sophistication of what the number is inside. I've spoken to so many people who've largely been criminalized because of their poverty. They didn't have the 300 Rand for bail for something what was a petty economic crime, spent a couple of months, even in a medium B, but come out with enough knowledge because they're going to be criminalized on the outside. They have a record now, no one's going to employ them, and they get told that inside. Might as well while I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm learning how to be a criminal at the University of Crime, which is ironically a prison.
So we can be staying in the same cycle. We're going to be coming out, relapsing, going back into the same. So then it's becoming habit forming, because it's not, you're labelled and you're stigmatized. I'm getting on. To me, it's not really for me personally anymore. I'm running to 60 now. But we've got people coming out. Up until today, it's actually 2022 is my 20 years from the last that I stood in a court of law that I was found guilty. You can look it up on my record. 2002 was the last. And why I say you can look it up on my record, I can't have my record expunged. But I've got job opportunities that were given to me, not now, over the years. You're the best person with it, and you've got all the qualifications, but because of your record. So how many other people aren't going to come out? I can just thank God that I've got enough wisdom spiritually and strength not to have relapsed. Because I've got a family too. We've got a home. There's responsibilities that must be, it will be nothing just to phone somebody quickly, arrange a firearm quickly, just one armed robbery, it's okay. But I've said no, stop for me. 2 of my other kids are presently in jail. You understand?
Let me then talk about guilt, responsibility, and what you can control. You said that after the death of your son in 1991 in bullets that were meant for you, and Dylan having died, you said you were angry. But when did you ever feel responsible? And, as you say, you have 2 children currently in prison. Do you feel responsible for being the role model who you are, which maybe sets them on their own path?
No, it was a wrong choice by me. First of all, let's take Dylan. Okay, now let's look at the behavior of a responsible father. Would he, first of all, put himself in the position as a gangster? There I was wrong. I'm a father. So even if the child came after I had become a gangster, I should have stepped away from the gangs and been a father. Okay, that one out the way. Second, a responsible father should have taken the child into the middle of the hotspot that is known as a target, and what was done that day was tried on previous occasions. That's why I look like I do, so it's not I didn't know. So all in wrong, boom, it's me, dumb. Can't blame the kid or anything like that. Or you can't even blame the person that pulled the trigger.
And your 2 children currently is in jail connected to the line of work and the path that you were in?
Yeah, because about 8-9 years ago when they went into jail, certain gang leaders of the 28 gang had phoned me from prison and said, "Hi, your son is here and he wants to become a 28.
What did you say?
My ma se kind, as die wat die nommer vir jou sê, as iemand in cheese wil raak, phone die pa buite. That's not the way things are done. So I said, don't ask me that.
And then there's a question here, and you were hesitant to even mention which organization or gang or gangster you worked for. And there's a question here about wanting to know more about Bobby Mongrel. Of course, the difficulty there is romanticizing figures. It's romanticizing this culture. It's maybe even glamorizing a culture. You don't want to do that.
No, not at all. It doesn't go about that, eh? It goes about the grace of God, eh? But I will say, doesn't matter his wrongs. He was a good man.
Was he? Would he? If your entire life is around a business which doesn't mind maiming, killing individuals and affecting communities, can you still be a good person?
Okay. Let's take it like this. Each one of us were created by God. Okay. A good man doesn't mean the behaviors are good. I like the man. I don't like the behaviors.
Can you extract the two? Can you separate someone who generally loves his kids, tucks them to bed, make sure that they have what they need, but it comes to the detriment of someone else's child, because that someone else's child father won't be there to tuck them in because he's being killed, or the mother is addicted to the stuff that they sell? Does that still make them a good father? I would say not.
At the end of the day, we God's creation. That's it. If we're going to go down a biblical line, Jesus, through it all, he still loved us. He still loved us. And that is what's happening, you know. I'm going to use myself as an example now. I'm still getting stigmatized because of what I used to do.
Yeah.
And yes, I was wrong. I was fully wrong. Every person that I've hurt, whether it be physically, mentally, financially, emotionally, I was wrong. That's my past. That's my past. Today, we're still getting stigmatized, labeled. And not only me, doesn't go about me. How many more are coming down this road, are going to be coming out of the walls of prison with that same? Meaning there's not going to be opportunity for them. So what's going to happen?
I believe that gangs, it's not the perfect role, but they perform the role in the absence of the state. When state resources dwindle, when they get stolen, when people are poor, and they haven't been approved to stand in a SASSA queue. The school feeding scheme doesn't extend to them as parents. It's imperfect, but gangsters provide that role. And so when people ask, oh, why don't people report gangs? Would you report the person who's going to...
The hand that's feeding you.
Are you going to report the hand that's feeding you when the people who are supposed to be looking after you, the state, the government, doesn't? So why would you want to report someone who you know is the person who's going to provide you your meal, some form of protection, even some form of policing? If a part-time schoolie steals something, you're not going to go to the police, you're going to go to the person who controls that street. Why would you do that? So what control, actually, what power and influence does a gang have on a street-by-street basis?
Well, let's put it like this. In the Western Cape, let's just talk in the Western Cape here where I live. The gangs are dominating. They're dominating. if you look deeper, even the foreign nationals and the legal ones have got our gang leaders in their pockets now. We've got our gang leaders in the pockets. That's what's happening in the prisons. I'm frequently inactive with people in and out of prison and via the phone and etc. etc. They're even controlling in our prisons at the moment. So our gangs is even getting distorted in prison. It's not 26, 27, 28. It's being faded out. Yes, it might look like it's a horse and a salute, but look deeper. So
Let's talk about that prison gang mythology. Let's talk about if I go to visit family or walk in the street and I have kids who talk like that, or salute, noma, all that, noma kajan, all that. Do you stop kids where you live and ask, wat weet julle? Why are you talking like that? What is it that the mythology around gangs and the words and the vernacular is part of the culture? So it normalizes gang culture.
And there's nothing to break it. That is like what's trending on the Cape Flats. Horse salute pakamisa. That's the how do they say on the YouTube when things trend? That's what's trending on the Cape Flats, and it's like a status. Yes, dio. But if we go back years to the beginning, when I can remember years, if you said horse or salute and you were asked the real meaning of that word, where did it come from? How come it exists that you say such things today?
Oh, I've seen someone get seen to. It was someone at school, and someone said, and they were walking down the street, and this guy approached him, asked him to tell, no, what is die geskiedenis? What's the history? And he couldn't, and you got beat up because that's not your language. But it's become part of so normalized as a language and a culture in our communities.
And you know why the people are leaving it and letting it going on? Because that is how we're actually nursing you to make you a gangster. We first let you talk it a bit and pull it, and that's not the way.
Question here. Alan said that he saw the gang leader as a father figure, and so many young people are equally vulnerable as addictions have robbed them of caring parents, mothers too. What is left for them? Asks this listener.
You know, that's a discussion that you and I had now, Lester, about the fatherless figure. And if we even look in our prisons today, the prison population, I haven't got the stats. The last I heard was 70-something%, I'm speaking under correction, of everybody that was there due to fatherless figures. It doesn't justify the crime they're there for, you understand? But look at the stats of the fatherless figure that is created from daddy not being there, an absent father, hy is daar, maar hy is nie daar nie. So really there's got to, you know, one thing that I picked was I heard you saying there now, the addiction and people being ripped apart, broken mothers and fathers. When I was in prison, what I can remember, there's restorative justice course that's offered by Hope Prison Ministries, Pastor Reverend Clayton and them.
And that is when where a perpetrator and a victim are encouraged to meet as a form of atonement and maybe, hopefully, a form of rehabilitation.
Yeah, which brings the restoration again, because it's in the communities. Now, first the breaking starts in the home and goes to the community. Want jy het nou die antie langs aan sy venster gebreek want jy het iets deur die venster gestuur, want die anties moes nou ook kwaad vir jou. Nou kom sy uit. Of sy het nou geskiet vir dinge, die bullet het dwars deur hulle venster gegaan. You understand? So that's very important. But today, correctional services will offer you this for your development in going forward. Hope Prison Ministries will do this. when you go out, what support is there? What support is there? What healing has been brought? So continuously goes back. There must be that support, being a role model, a father figure.
Are you proud of your journey at all? And we are made up of all the events and people that leads us to us now. Are you may be proud of who you are now, and
I'm not
are you
proud.
proud of what Alan has done?
No, I'm not proud of the decisions I made in my life. The damage I caused to people. There's never a way that I can make it all up because it's millions of rands if we have to look at it in monetary value. But it goes about giving back, eh? We've got to where we can to make amends. It doesn't help we just say sorry. Sorry rolls off our lips like the sheet flap in the wind. You understand?
Yeah, when we were speaking off air of the language and how we talk to each other, of how it's so easy for someone to relapse after a substance program if they go back to a family where there's verbal violence, where I'm only here because I am somehow by some custom told I'm supposed to be in this house, but I don't. It appears that I don't like you because of the language. Similarly to crime, similarly to violence. You were speaking about how difficult it is for someone to come out of a substance or some form of reformation program and going back into an environment where violence is spoken. I think it could be the same example used of coming out of prison and going back in a community that is not necessarily going to show caring, but actually direct you again into a criminalized lifestyle. Expand on what you said about the violence that we speak to each other.
You see, Lester, when you come out of that environment, or when you're in that environment, and that is the only way that you know. It's been a habit for over the years now. Like I was in addiction and gangsterism 35 years of my life. In prison, in and out for 21 years. Ek het net gevonden hoe om te salute en pakamisa. At a stage when you start going to church, jy salute sommer vir die pastor ook. And you don't realize it because it's a habit. So there must be a behavioral modification change, mindset change, before everyone's going to say, oh, maar hy het gesê hy is skoon en hy doen nie meer daai nie, maar hoor hy salute en pak amisa nog. It's just a habit. It's got to change. It's a process. It doesn't come over just overnight. But now you got somebody coming out of addiction, going home again, coming from a rehab, going home. There's still a lot of brokenness at home. There's a mommy, there's a daddy, there's a brother, there's two sisters. Each one of them have been a victim to a phone going missing, a tablet going missing, a car being smashed, a ring being stolen. Now, yeah, you come from rehab all clean. They all still broken. Jou vark, gaat jou weer met tablet kom steel. Sy moet vir jou lekker hou. Sy slaap sommer op die straat. Oopsie. And while he's saying that, then the sister screams from the bedroom, Mommy, en wat van my phone wat hy gesteel het? Oopsie. At the end of the day, he's only human. So what's he going to do? He's going to go back to a comfort where this isn't done to him. Which is where? Back by the drugs. He's going to go through a process. You can put him back in rehab. He's going to come out. But you as family that were affected by his infection, there wasn't something put in place that you can find healing as well.
I whenever there is an upsurge in gang violence, there's always this knee-jerk, this call, more police, more army, or the army must be sent. I believe it's easier said than done. is instead of 1,000 more police, we need 1,000 more teachers, 1,000 more social workers, 1,000 more jobs. Do you see within your lifetime? It's a foolhardy question, but we're not going to see the end of organized crime and people being part of some sort of cartel-like formation, gangs. But do you see in your lifetime, at least, gang violence becoming less to a point that it reaches a situation of, and it's, of course, one loss of life, one gang shooting is intolerable, but you ever see a de-escalation in your lifetime, Alan, of gang violence in Cape Town?
There's always a last hope. There's always a last hope. Maar die mense moenie buys over die laaste hoopie. Hulle moenie buys aan nie. Or it's going to go past. It's not a political campaign, but Gayton McKenzie, as president of this country, will take our country.
That is exactly a political statement.
They can shoot me, they can do... honestly, listen, and I promise you, he never paid me nothing to say that. The heart that he's got. And you know why he's got the heart? You know why he's got the heart? Because he's been through that brokenness. He's got the understanding of the people. He was in jail. He was there. He was there.
Does it only take someone who's been in jail to understand what goes on? Like
No. It takes the certain, the brokenness. And that's the majority at the moment. And what impacts it is, he's got the business as well. That complements it.
Alan, really appreciate we're running out of time, but thank you so much for your time.
The Morning Review with Lester Kiewit.
Only on Cape Talk.